I'd like to bring to mind the TUG conference in Santa Barbara. I'm not sure of the year, but I think it was 1994. And this was after Leslie Lamport had begun to engage with um, Frank Mittelbach, Michelle Goosens, and David Carlisle, and others to take over the maintenance of LaTeX. And Leslie was invited to the conference to begin to speak about, well, whatever he wanted to talk about. And his talk was titled The Future of LaTeX. And when he began talking, it was suddenly clear to everybody that he was there as a disruptor. And for him, the future of LaTeX lay not in enhancing LaTeX as it was, but in introducing things that would make it more convenient for him as an author. And he talked about the notion that you could have a more, how to say this, that the author could have greater power in working with the document. He talked about mathematics as syntactical math. He talked about markup that he thought should be deprecated. For instance, everybody knows that you can type underscore and then a letter in math mode, and then that letter will be a subscript. But Leslie said that was wrong. He said always put braces around that thing that follows the underscore. Same for superscripts. He also pointed out that there was this pitfall in text infix notation where you could write backslash over with something before and something after, and TeX would then make it the numerator and denominator of a fraction. And he didn't like infix notation. He said that he had introduced backslash frac into LaTeX so that the numerator and denominator could be clearly discerned in the source code. And it was thoughts like these where Leslie was pulling no punches. How to say this? For somebody to say that Knuth had made a bad choice in introducing infix notation in his math markup was as close to lèse-majesté as you could get. But a great many of us were highly amused and delighted that he would take such a disruptive approach to charting the future of LaTeX. That was so many years ago, but have we really fulfilled anything of his vision? I'm not so sure.
I always use braces around subscripts and superscripts, even if it's just one character.
Yeah, and as a publishing consultant, I oftentimes worked with authors who wanted to use TeX or who already had adopted TeX and already had a TeX manuscript. But for the publisher, this was very problematic because they didn't know how to deal with TeX. But there was a promise in that this highly technical material could actually get typeset and delivered to them per specification for them to publish as a book. And in working with so many authors, I noticed that Leslie's fundamental emphasis which was descriptive markup. People didn't understand that. And in the world of SGML or later XML, we found that descriptive markup was the hallmark of those markup languages. So that's why I am an SGML enthusiast, because they didn't need to learn that lesson more than once. And to this day, I work with authors and try to promote their use of descriptive markup for their own benefit.
I'm going to pick up on something you said, Art, which is that Leslie Lamport wanted to be author-centric, focused on the author's experience. And looking back at the history since then of the tech users group, I feel that it's very much become a tech developers group, and the focus of the LaTeX 3 team has been on making life comfortable for the LaTeX style programmer and building an enormous structure of LaTeX macros. Having said that, LaTeX team certainly did a very good job in putting order and cleaning up the LaTeX 209 into LaTeX 2E. I think that was well worth doing. And I remember I helped organize or run it, a meeting that I think it was David Carlisle and Sebastian Ratz did at Cambridge on graphics and LaTeX. So a lot of these basic things that are very important are very worthwhile accomplishments and help the author and help the publishing industry, as you say. But the author-centered side of things, I feel something that we've lost, that the balance has been lost. So I meant to ask you a question instead of giving you an opinion, but I'd appreciate your comments on this.
On what you've just said, you know, while you were speaking, I recalled how in Leslie's talk, he created a picture of how the author would be looking at his document. I just said his, I apologize. The author would be looking at their document and seeing the rendered document on screen, and would be able to somehow click on the rendered document and see inside to the text source code. And this might appear in maybe a pop-up window or something. And then later on, put that away and restore the original view of the typeset document. And then this would serve as a means, an affordance for the author to make changes in the document, to make edits, which would instantaneously appear. And it was shortly thereafter that Blue Sky Research in Portland, Oregon, came up with what they call lightning mode for textures, their tech offering for Macintosh. That it didn't realize quite that vision, but it did provide a way, number one, for the author to immediately see the typeset document without delay. And that's why they called it lightning mode. And later on, they introduced an additional modality whereby if you were looking at the typeset document, you could click in this view and a window would come forward with the text source in it at that particular juncture. And you could go back and forth very easily. And that feature is now in TechShop. And it's quite useful. So I'm glad to see that it's still there, re-implemented, by the way, by a completely different team of people. So I think that some people in the tech world have been working on an author-centric or author-empowering way of approaching the tech typesetting language, which is, I would say, it's arcane. That's its hallmark. And that's partly what we're trying to do. You know, I want to repeat a heresy here. That Donald Knuth had been very, very good at writing the Pascal compiler. I don't know if you know this, but he's famous for that early work. He wrote a Pascal compiler. And that's why the original language for Tangle was Pascal, if you remember. But that he had designed a language in tech that was a nightmare. And in truth, while working and programming in tech extensively, I find working with other programming languages, like JavaScript for that matter, to be a relief. And the fact that I can single step through my Java code, or for that matter, Swift, it's really quite empowering. But I can't do that with tech. And to this day, working as a tech programmer, not a tech-based author, but as a tech programmer, it is quite nightmarish.